security scanners with bad guys look for our customers. What they do is they essentially use Google to find websites that are running packages they know are vulnerable. So you say, look for NURL, this PHPBB, and look for this version string, and you get a nice long list of all of the websites which are likely compromisable if you're a website hacker. And this is the kind of malware they inject. I only included this in here for the really nice long list of features that this malicious code gives to the guy who injects it into your website. There's the SQL injection, RFI, LFI, code execution, various types of mask scanners using different domains, integrated shell, and all sorts of other features. And this is running on Unix. It's a bit of PHP. So it's not just Windows which has the issue here. And obviously, the bad guys know that they're onto a good thing. When you look at last year, 2007 versus 2008, the number of injected websites that we see has skyrocketed. I wanted to very briefly talk about OWASP. Who is here familiar with OWASP? Oh, that makes me feel good. We can kind of skip this. If you are doing any kind of web application security, look into WebGoat. It's a self-contained package. You can run off of a boot CD. You can run off a boot ISO. Actually, I've got an image on it for VMware. And it steps you through web application security for SQL injection, cross-site request forgery, cross-site scripting, about 15, 20 different sections and subsections where you get to step through the exercises of what the bad guys are doing. Now, this is something that is difficult to obviously do for every company, but if you're building websites for people and you're not aware of how they can be misused and abused, you're doing a disservice to your customers. So if you're an application programmer, look at these types of tools. They're free. That's why I throw them on there. Now, I always get asked, do you still get DDoSes? You know, DDoSes were kind of a thing of the past, some people say. The press is saying that DDoSes aren't nearly as popular. Yeah, not quite true. They're still incredibly popular. We get dozens per day. As a matter of fact, if I don't see a DDoS, I start to wonder if there's a problem with our internet connection. It's just wrong. It's like way too silent. Actually, this happened last week, and this is because of the vacancy time, right? Last week, I saw almost 20 hours without a single DDoS. That has never happened in the years that I've been at Access for All. And I got very worried. I was logging onto all of the routers. I was checking all the logs. Is there a problem with the peering? What's broken? And literally just about the time I did that, we got a few million packets per second to an IRC server. Oh, good, everything's okay. Thanks, Romania. So it's sad that you have to see the internet that way, and I don't know if I can say this in public, and I'm sorry if no, I don't think this is breaking any privacy things, but we don't have any privacy experts here, do we? One of our customers operates a very popular website for showing you radar images of the weather. I don't need to name them. Traceroute will tell you if you figure out who it is, so this isn't a privacy thing. But what is funny for me is that whenever you lot, the locals, think, you know, is it good weather to go sit outside on a terrace? The first thing you do is go and check this website. And that looks like a DDoS from our system's point of view. So you can see around 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, this incredible rush of traffic to this weather radar website thinking, is it good enough to go sit outside? Can we sit outside? You get a little bit in the morning before the morning commute, but in the afternoon, this is how I know if the weather is good or bad. I don't have to look outside. If I get a DDoS alert, enough people are concerned, which means it's overcast and probably going to rain. So, in the end, yes, we get DDoSes. Yes, a couple of gigabits here and there, a few 100,000 packets per second here or there. This is 1.57 million packets per second at 2.83 gigabits per second. This was interesting. This was against a colo customer who was probably in the room. What happened was, I'm kidding here, they're not. I made sure of that. He's in a grave, a shallow one in a desert community. But they had an SSH brute force compromise to their server at Access for All. The bad guys then launched attacks against others, and those people said, well, screw you, and attacked our customer as the source of the attacks. And so our guy was kind of an innocent third party, but this is an incredibly common thing to have happen for us. DNS amplification attacks. Any interest? Shall I skip it? There's a couple of hands. We're going to talk about it. It's kind of interesting, mostly because one of the biggest problems that we're seeing as a provider is that this is actually being caused by, do I even put up there? Obviously, open forwarding and recursive servers of some type. embedded systems, modems, devices that are a living nightmare to upgrade, if they're upgradable at all. But they've got a DNS proxy listening on the WAN port that takes any request from the internet, and we're going to come back on what this means in a minute and why it's a problem, and then go ahead and answer it for whoever makes the query, or appears to. So this is something that causes us a real problem. It leads to some massive DDoS attacks. One of the more recent ones last week was over 40 gigabits per second of traffic. That's a lot. That sucks when you receive that. That makes the light not blink, just stays on. And we really need to have this fixed, and fixing it isn't easy. So this is the way a DDoS amplification or DNS amplification attack works. So the bad guy has control over a number of bots on systems. This is trivial. You can go to eBay and buy bots. It's not a difficult thing to get. And they go ahead and they send a spoofed request. It's UDP, easy to spoof. Not a lot of providers have egress filters, which means that I can pretend to be his ISP. Oh, wait, you're one of my customers, aren't you? No, you're not. You should be. So if you don't have egress filtering, it's trivial for me to be somebody else. And I send this UDP packet out, and I say, go ahead, guys, answer this text query for me for this domain that I control. I control evil.com. I'm the evil mastermind with my island. I'm still working on that part. And I make this request for a text field or a DNSSEC certificate or an IPv6 record, anything which is larger in response to the size of the query I made, thus amplifying the size of the response. If I send a 53-byte request and I get 4 kilobytes in return, that's an excellent investment strategy. If only Wall Street would have followed that for the last 2 years. So they send these spoofed requests using the victim address, the person they want to receive the attack, as the source of the request to these open resolvers. This might be a modem, might be a DSL box, might be a colo box, could be all sorts of things. Those things then say, okay, fine, I'll go talk to .com, I'll find out who's in charge of evil.com, if they don't already have it cached, or talk to their authoritative resolver for the ISP, get the answer to that. They then go ahead and get that text record for evil.com, and then they go ahead and return that, regardless of the size, to the spoofed IP address which sent them the request. So a lot of these other requests in the top on the right might be going via our server. So our customer with a DSL modem, which is running firmware that is older than, well, most of you, that request goes out, comes back with a 4 kilobyte response packet, and goes off to the victim IP address. And if you do that, even at a fairly slow data rate, but you do it times a few 100,000 machines, that's what, or even a few thousand machines, that's what builds up to some really powerful attacks. And you can do the math yourself. Just depending upon the type of customer, co-location, DSL, whatever, just a few packets per second can easily equal a very, very, very large attack. So, I have been talking for 31 minutes, which is about halfway technically, and I'm on slide 54 of 109. How's that? Bots and botnets. Are there any interest in that, or shall I move on to ranting about something else? Bots? Okay, we'll do a little bit on bots. We'll zip through. I wanted to talk about 2 particular botnets because the organizers asked me to. They wanted me to talk about Conficker. I wanted to talk a little about Srisby, just because it was highly publicized last year. He says 15 minutes. That's nice. Pat, pat. Is he funny? So Srisby was interesting. It's on Wikipedia. It must be true. You can find out more about it there. It had all sorts of interesting things, hundreds of thousands of infections, responsible. It was considered to be the largest spam cannon. Oh, good. They're talking about the fact that I keep annoying them on the camera.